Coming up on the... Hello and welcome to the live stream. This is a very special live stream coming to you live from socially distant studios in the middle of nowhere. I am your Heavenly Father, Kevin Williams, and today we have a very special guest. This is David Mickelson. For those of you who don't know who he is, too bad.
Well, hello.
Go ahead and introduce yourself. David, you started something, and it's given away by what's behind your head. Who are you?
Yes, I am the founder of the Snopes.com fact-checking site. Kevin is a good friend of mine. I thought coming here and helping him was the least I could do, and I always do the least I can do. So I'm happy to be here and lend a hand to the live streaming fact-checking event.
And so, yay, everyone's here. Hi, Green Room, good to see you. Hi, Producer Jackie. Hi, Lizzie. Hi, everyone else watching. If you're just tuning in for the first time, yes, that is the real David with therealsnopes.com, the fact-checking website that has been around for many, many years. We're going to do an interview with him later today at, 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern.
Yes.
And I'll have to fact check that myself because I can't remember what I put earlier. Anyway, we're going to do that, but right now what we're going to do, we like to cover the news of the day and fact check it as it happens. That's KK Macaroni, the press secretary for the White House behind us, and we are going to fact check that. If you'd like to be, hi Collins Jackson's family, hey Steph, everybody else who comes in. I'm not going to keep saying hi to everybody because this is a new setup for us, technically. I've gone out and spent literally tens of dollars to make this happen. And so there will be hiccups along the road today. Yes. And when David hiccups, I apologize. He's got some sort of gastrointestinal issue that I'm not in charge.
I am, in fact, on the International Space Station.
Yes, so he's on at least a 4-second delay. And I'm, as usual, I'm on a 27-second delay in terms of thought. So we will get going here in just a second. I'm just checking out the different rooms, make sure we're going. Twitter appears to be working today, except that, of course, Snopes, with their verified account, you guys still can't access your Twitter. Is that correct, David?
That's correct. If you're a verified account and you tried to change your password to secure it, apparently you can still no longer log in. So.
Wow. And Kim is here. She's on cable today. So, Kim, you're ahead of us. So you tell us what we need to say because you're going to know 30 seconds ahead of us what we need to say. Kayleigh's, we kind of watched this a little bit. We were setting things up technically, so I wasn't paying too much attention. Hey, Cousin Larry, good to see you. Dr. Howard, good to see you. Dr. Howard, check out the crawl as it goes by. It's been updated with your information. So this episode is brought to you by Dr. Howard, everyone. Hi, Allison, good to see you. So this is the point where I stop saying hello to everybody and tell you, hey, if you'd like to support this sort of thing, a different look on the news, live fact-checking, then please go to kevinlyfather.com or go to snopes.com. Because David's here today, and that's what he does. And they are partially supported by user donations. Do you call them donations? What do you call them, David? Contributions?
Yes. Donations, subscriptions, memberships, buy merchandise, whatever you like.
Yeah, you can buy that cool shirt that if you lean back there, David, everybody can see that Snopes is it's battery operated. Hold on, I'll get rid of this for you. It glows as we go here. Okay. Here it comes. Boom.
It's a plain black shirt. It's not really exciting. There you go.
Yeah, I know, but where do you put the 9-volt for that battery? Because it's been going ever since we turned the broadcast on. His shirt that's written in yellow, isn't it, David?
No, it's white with the yellow Snopes.
Yeah, so the yellow Snopes, the green screen technology that we're using right now thinks that has a little bit of green in it, and so it's making it dazzle like that, which I kind of like the effect. So, and David is sitting in front of a green screen, so he didn't paint that Snopes background right there in the background. David, was David drinking with two hands? I didn't even notice. All right, let's get to Kayleigh, guys. We will be monitoring your chat, and the exciting thing is coming up. What did I say? Did I say 3 o'clock? New Pacific. Let me just make sure because I announced it earlier. So it's 6 Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. We're doing a question and answer with David. Time allowing, because the schedule for the White House has changed already 3 times. So if 3 o'clock is available, we're going to do a Q&A, and we're going to take your questions as well. And that's going to be maybe a different set of technology as well. So we'll make it work. And thank you for coming along for the ride. So again, if you'd like to support us, KevinLeeFather.com. If you'd like to contribute to the preeminent fact-checking website on the internet, and it has been since before the internet.
1822
is when David started this thing. Then go to Snopes.com. It doesn't sound... I'm going to fact-check that. Let's get to Kayleigh.
Yeah, that Martin Van Buren election was a killer.
He's such a carpetbagger.
This afternoon, President Trump will deliver remarks on rolling back regulations to help all Americans. Deregulation has been a top priority of this president. The president reversed the disastrous over-regulation of the Obama-Biden administration. Under President Trump, 7 deregulatory actions have been taken for every 1 new regulation. This amounted to $50 billion in regulatory cost savings, and it is important to note that this deregulation agenda lowers the cost for every American. The cost of these burdensome regulations fall disproportionately and benefit disproportionately lower income Americans. So this
just like the tax system.
President took action to roll back the burdensome regulations that harm low-income communities and make sure that these lower-income Americans are taken care of. For example, the president's deregulatory agenda will boost household income by $3,100 annually. Thanks to President.
So that's, I guess we're up to the $4,000 for the tax cut per family, per household. Plus the subsidies to the oil companies. And altogether, the last time I remember Trump had said, David, that it was about $10,000 that the average family, and that's going to bring us to $13,100 United States dollars for every single family under President Trump. So I implore you, if you're out there watching and you are now $13,000 a year richer because of President Trump, go ahead and vote for Trump.
Yeah, we'll save you money by not covering your pre-existing conditions anymore.
Oh yeah, cut out the medical costs and things plummet.
Trump's rolling back of the Obama-Biden era CAFE standards. Families will have access to cheaper cars. The president.
Yeah, but that's only because all the cafes are closed.
Healthcare deregulation will also save patients nearly 10% on prescription drug costs. These real wins for the American people will
David, I should let you know if at any time you want me to pause. So David's got a soft voice. He's a gentle soul and a gentle vocal cord. Just raise your hand, David, and I'll pause it for you.
You can pause if she says something important so we can zip through this whole thing.
Oh, yeah. Let's just go to the end, okay? And this is the end of what she says.
That H1N1
and that's about it. And off she goes. Okay. Thanks, everybody. This has been the live stream with David, the fact checker. Let's go back. What the hell? Let's go through it here.
Actions have been taken for every 1 new regulation. This amounted to $50 billion in regulatory cost savings, and it is important to note that this deregulation agenda lowers the cost for every American. The cost of these burdensome regulations fall disproportionately and benefit disproportionately from America. President Trump's rolling back of the Obama-Biden era CAFE standard.
These regulations benefit disproportionately low-income families.
The regulations do, or the deregulations?
She said the regulations were disproportionately burdensome and disproportionately favorable.
Okay, let's go back and check that.
To roll back the burdensome regulations that harm low-income communities and make sure that these lower-income Americans are taken care of. For example, the president's $50 billion.
We're never getting through. We're like 20 minutes into the broadcast, and we've covered 13 seconds. Hey, producer Joanna, good to see you. Hi, Vin. Hey, Barb. We're doing this early. I called up the White House and said, can we have KK Macaroni do things early? Because Dave is going to be here, and we want to make sure Barb in Belgium can watch.
And regulatory cost savings.
By the way, another interrupt. Once we get going here, it's going to be so smooth. We're going to be done with this thing by next Easter. I swear to God. If our audio levels are all whacked up, let me know. Because, again, this is a brand new setup. We're experimenting this for the first time, and hopefully this is the first of many times that we're able to get guests on the show.
And it is important to note that this deregulation agenda lowers the cost for every American. The cost of these burdensome regulations fall disproportionately and benefit disproportionately lower-income Americans.
So both.
See? Stop.
They're burdensome and beneficial, which makes the beneficiaries of...
That's kind of like the baby in the bathwater thing.
Well, honestly, right now I could not handle a baby. So throw it all out. I'm with Kayleigh on this one.
So this president took action to roll back the burdensome regulations that harm low-income communities and make sure that these lower-income Americans are taken care of. For example, the president's deregulatory agenda will boost household income by $3,100.
I mean, that's kind of the point.
Well,
they make you do stuff.
They're supposed to be restrictive, I guess. But they can be burdensome. They don't have to be burdensome.
Annually, thanks.
I mean, that's the whole thing, is the regulations are supposed to be beneficial. You say, hey, don't put arsenic in the drinking water, and that's a benefit to the American consumers. We are still doing that, aren't we? Is that...
To President Trump's rolling back of the Obama-Biden-era CAFE standards, families will have access to cheaper cars. The president's healthcare deregulation will also save patients nearly 10% on prescription drug costs. These real wins for the American people will disappear with a re-regulation agenda, which is why President Trump will continue to pursue his historic deregulation activity. On another note, we saw encouraging news yesterday on vaccines. Moderna's vaccine candidate is showing promising signs.
Running on a re-regulation agenda?
Yeah, Biden is like, Biden 2020, regulate, regulate, regulate.
It produced a positive, neutral immune response among the 45 participants in the study. This is comparable to what we see in recovered patients. And the bottom line is that so far we are seeing exactly what you would hope to see in a vaccine. They're expected, the Moderna vaccine in particular, is expected to reach phase 3 by late July with 30,000 participants. And finally, on the therapeutics front, I just want to note a very encouraging Regeneron contract, a $450 million contract for monoclonal antibody cocktail. This is a bioengineered version of convalescent plasma. One of the several therapeutics available to treat COVID, can be used for prophylaxis and treatment, and they say they could have...
Do we have a drinking word? Did anybody come up with a drinking word for today? And the sad thing is the press conference was rolling already. We were listening to it. But
at this point, I think it should be burdensome.
Burdensome. This whole thing is burdensome. Anytime she says Trump, okay, let's get hammered today. Well, we got 2 more broadcasts to do. So somebody come up with a good drinking word. Not something that won't appear too much.
Have up to 70 to 300,000 vials of this by the end of the summer or early fall. So Operation Warp Speed continues. We continue to see encouraging news on the therapeutics front. And with that, I will take your questions. Jeff.
Thank you, Kayleigh. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan said today that President Trump...
Call me. She never calls on me.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to pause it. You raised your hand. That was her signal.
No,
okay, from
now
on the signal is
caw,
caw, and then I'll know.
Has left states
smooth like a cold knife through butter.
To fend for themselves during this pandemic. He accused the president of not listening to medical experts. That is quite a takedown coming from a Republican governor.
Yeah, it's really striking, his comments, especially when you compare them to his past comments. This is revisionist history by Governor Hogan, and it stands in stark contrast to what he said on March 19th, where he praised the great communication that the president has had with governors. On March 19th, he also said, thank you, there's been tremendous cooperation.
Which part of that contradicts him saying that the president doesn't follow the science?
Yeah, maybe back in March, the president wasn't
what he said on March
getting
19th.
everyone to attack Dr. Fauci as completely unreliable and wrong all the time.
Right, and back in March, you remember they were being told, hey, we're going to have 20 million tests by the end of March. Let's do it.
Where he praised the great communication that the president has.
So praising great communication, because the president was on the phone call, doesn't mean that the president was following the science. We're now in... And you can fact check me on this, David. We're in the present.
Yes.
And that's where we have to be all the time. Does that not make sense?
Yes. Well, I wish we weren't in the present because it's a lot worse than it was.
I know. I want that medically induced coma until January 19th or 20th. Well, I don't even know what inauguration date. We're never going to get there. Let's be honest. The murder hornets are going to get me.
On March 19th, he also said, thank you. There's been tremendous cooperation. And what is so striking to me about reading that op-ed is Governor Hogan.
So I really hope one of the reporters says, yeah, but what does cooperation and communication have to do with ignoring the science?
Yeah.
At the same time, Trump was benefiting us, he was also regulating and burdensoming us.
I think
Did we decide on a drinking word?
Wasn't like Navarro's op-ed in striking contrast to what Trump said about Dr. Fauci back in March?
Yes, striking contrast. It's striking.
And begins with this dramatic April 18th scene where South Korea delivered tests, but just the day prior, he said something entirely different. He, in fact...
Oh, okay, so for those of you who don't know, Governor Larry Hogan of Maryland wrote an op-ed today criticizing the Trump regime and saying that absolutely failed us on testing. Hogan had to go to South Korea to get 5,000 tests a couple months back because just couldn't get any from the U.S. government. The federal government was doing that whole "we're not a stockpile." We're not a shipping clerk. The stockpile belongs to Jared, clearly. Right. Go get your own stuff. And that drove up the costs, etc. And so South Korea, which handled the virus by testing early, Larry Hogan, the governor of Maryland, which is right there next to Washington, D.C.
Go out on the free market, buy your test kits.
Yeah, which then drives the price up for everybody, etc., etc.
Thank the president for the progress we've seen.
Was it 500,000 tests? I thought it was 5,000 tests. You can somebody fact check. All the fact checkers are in the room.
500.
And federal and state coordination in recent weeks, and went on to praise testing capabilities. He said with regard to some of the top needs of states, including ventilators and testing capabilities. So 24 hours before this dramatic opening scene of his op-ed, he literally was praising the president of the United States
before
for
Trump said to slow down the testing because we're finding too many cases.
Honestly, I'm bored of the testing, so I wish it would just stop, and then we wouldn't get any more, and then we're done. Let's go dance.
Bring on testing.
And how do you explain that President Trump is trailing his opponent by double digits both nationally and in battleground states, with majorities disapproving of his handling of race relations and the coronavirus?
Okay, that's a wasted question. Just complete waste of a question. Let's move on.
So that would be a question
Fake
for the
news
campaign
polls.
when it comes to campaign polling. But what I would say is we believe this president has great approval in this country. His historic COVID response speaks for itself with delivering on ventilators and testing, leading the world in the amount of testing we've provided.
No, China's way ahead of us.
Therapeutics, the 13 vaccine candidates, the Moderna example that I pointed out to you. This president's response has been historic, and we believe his support in this country reflects that, but with
I'm going to throw this out there, David, for your opinion. Isn't everything a president does historic? He's the president.
Well, and how is it not a historic COVID response? Because there's never been a COVID response.
Right. Literally everything he does, it's the first time that someone has done it during a COVID outbreak.
But she's kind of like saying, well, never mind the polls. We believe he's more popular than the polls actually say.
Yeah, no, they're all fake polls.
Although, given the last election results, who can argue?
Everybody's absolutely right. I'm completely wrong. I was off by 100-fold. Someone told me that from a very reputable television station. 500,000 tests is, as soon as I said 5,000, I thought, well, that doesn't sound right. But anyway, it's because that's 3 for every police officer in Minneapolis.
Pertaining to battleground polling or campaign-related polling, I'd refer you there. Yes.
Kayleigh, we've seen the president hold a range of public events this week, but none of those events have been focused on the coronavirus. Why not?
The president's routinely focused on the coronavirus. I think you'll be hearing more about what we're doing in the coming week. He's hard at work. We talk about COVID every day from this podium. The task force is hard at work, and I'm glad you asked about COVID in particular, because I just want to read through some of...
Because otherwise, she would have been standing with a binder going, we gotta go, but no one's asking me about COVID.
Who could have guessed that would have come up?
Wow, I guess these people just don't care about COVID anymore. Thank God, I'm telling the president.
Because the president's hard at work, so we're going to ignore it.
Yeah.
Things that we are doing, which I think is most important than what we're saying is what we're doing. And the White House has engaged in travel, Dr. Birx, to Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. I spoke with Dr. Birx this morning. She's in Georgia today, heading to South Carolina tomorrow. HHS.
Oh, hey, hold on. Snopes is a Soros-funded outfit, Marxist. Sweet. Okay, well then drinks are on David. We're all going dancing.
Has deployed 19 teams across the country. We identified...
Let's just fact check that for a second. David, are you Soros funded?
If we are, he's about 22 years behind.
Oh, man, that's the problem. He's like Trump. He's going to say, oh, yeah, I'm totally going to pay you. Yeah, no, it's coming. I've got this new system called PayPal. It's just, I don't know. I've tried the password now 14,000 times, and now Twitter died. It's just, Oh, it's one thing after another with Soros.
Not where we see embers, but pre that. We identify where we might see an emergence, and we send teams there to address it in advance. So we're proactive. Dr. Birx routinely sends real-time data to governors. She gives them governors.
Dr. Birx is deliberately avoiding going to Florida.
No, she was just in Florida like last week. She's got, if she does need a mask, boom, scarf, done.
Reports on remdesivir. We've surged it to Texas, Florida, California, Arizona. 65,000 vials went to these 4 states, and we're also surging testing sites. So we're doing stuff each and every day.
But Kayleigh, surely you'd agree this is the biggest challenge facing the public right now. Why aren't we seeing it as the president's biggest public priority?
The president's
Because someone got shot in New York this weekend? That's my guess.
focusing on a lot. Look, the president just yesterday held a big press conference, if you will, or an avail in the Oval Office about MS-13. COVID is something that we're focused on. It is a top priority of this administration. It's why the task force meets. It's why I mentioned to you we're taking all those steps. But there are other things the president has to focus on, namely Democrat cities not controlling their streets, namely the mayor of Chicago.
I'm sorry, David, what?
There's other things the president has to focus on, like product endorsements.
Right, exactly. He doesn't have the time. He's hawking beans.
Chicago, people dying in her on the streets of her city every weekend. And
Hold on, just a second. I just want to take a. Oh, he's gone now. Who said that? Yeah, Hal. If there's a cure for the coronavirus, I don't know why we're not getting it out there, because Jared could be making a ton of money on it. But keep chatting, Hal C, because the more you chat, the more money I make, and then the more money I can give to George Soros to pay Snopes.
The president sent her a letter saying you must secure your city. The president's involved in Operation Legend in honor of Legend Taliaferro, a young man who lost his life, sending federal assistance to St. Louis, a city that has asked for our help, and he's shown up. The president's focused on MS-13, who tragically maimed and killed those 2 young little girls, and he's held their killer accountable, the leader of that ring. So the president's focused on COVID. It's a top priority. He's focused on the violence in the streets. He's doing a lot of things at once, and that's the great thing about the Trump administration.
Just quickly, when's the last time he attended a task force briefing?
The president is briefed on coronavirus each and every day. Yes, Darlene.
Thank you. Does the White House agree that it's not helpful for people to wait 7 days or longer to get the results of their coronavirus tests? And is the White House going to do anything to try to shorten those wait times so that people can get their results sooner?
So we've done more than any country in the world on testing. There's no doubt about that. 42 million tests. The country with the next highest number is India at 12 million. There are various different types of tests in this country. Some take longer to process than others, but we have surged testing to the states. We encourage them to use it to their best ability and to process those tests as quickly as possible. Yes,
thank you. To follow up on that, it's not just about the quantity of testing, it's about the quality of testing. So is the administration doing anything specifically to make all the tests out there return quicker results? Because, a lot of health experts are worried that when people have to wait 7 days or longer, they're out here spreading the disease unknowingly.
So as I noted, there are several different types of tests. There's the Abbott rapid response test. There are other tests that take longer. Dr. Birx and Admiral Joie are constantly out there advising on testing and how to process these tests. Ultimately, we can give the states the supplies, but they've got to use them in the best way possible to get results as quickly as possible. But rest assured, our team's fully engaged, from Admiral Joie to Dr. Birx and others. And Admiral Joie shared with me, we have 552 sites testing in America in 48 states and the District of Columbia. 65% of these sites are located in counties with moderate to high social vulnerability, and 201 additional sites will be going live this week, and that's on top of the 1,300 federally qualified health centers that are out there testing.
Okay, but we got 330 million people, so it's obviously not enough. People are, A, still can't get tests, B, are having to wait a week for their test results, which is useless.
No. How long did you wait for yours?
My results in Seattle were pretty quick. It was about 3 days, if I'm remembering correctly.
and the commercial testing sites at
I have another
CVS.
question. Kayleigh, in an interview with CBS News, President Trump said more white people are killed as an answer to why black people are still being killed by police officers. But by population percentages, black people are about 3 times more likely than white people to die in a police encounter. If the
Fake news,
president
it's only
won't
2.8.
even acknowledge that, how can he fix the problem?
The president has routinely acknowledged and expressed the absolute atrocity of the case of George Floyd, and his heart goes out to that family still. He was noting a fact that there were, when you look at unarmed killings with police interactions in this country, that you had 9 unarmed black individuals who were fatally shot and 19 unarmed white individuals. That's down from 38 and 32 respectively in 2015. So the numbers have actually come down since the Obama administration. He was making that point, but one
Thanks,
point he wants
Obama.
to strongly
Well,
make is
but being shot is not the only way that people die at the hands of police, as we saw in the George Floyd case. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
just
George Floyd wasn't shot.
this,
a
that
good
black
point.
men and women who die of homicide, they are likely to die of homicide at 8 times greater than that of white individuals and Hispanics combined. That's the rate combined. So that's an extraordinary thing that we want to look at. I've listed for you the names of these kids who have died across this country. It is unacceptable, and under this president, he'll take action, and the derelict mayor of Chicago should step up and ask for federal help because she's doing a very poor job at securing her streets.
But see, that's not the question that was asked. People aren't, didn't take to the streets in Minneapolis and other cities because of the homicide rate in the U.S. It was specifically about black people being killed by white police, not, oh my gosh, the homicide rate in this country is terrible, let's go protest.
David, all homicides matter. That's what they were chanting. Specifically shooting. All homicides matter, specifically shooting related ones by only on unarmed individuals, and there's a lot more whites per cap.
I really could not think of a single thing. What is the administration doing to bring down the overall homicide rate in the country? They're working hard at it, apparently. Doing what?
Aren't they increasing background checks? We're going to have universal background checks. We're going to close the gun show loopholes. I can't talk today. I can never talk. Yeah, I don't know. It's
taxes on firearms and ammunition, all sorts of burdensome regulations.
Oh, that's right. Getting rid of regulations, specifically on cops shooting people. Or not shooting them and killing them.
Is the president considering travel bans for members of the Communist Party to enter the U.S.? And is he concerned about escalation of tensions with China?
So I have no announcements on that front, but rest assured we keep every option on the table with regard to China.
Has he ruled out any options at all?
He's not ruled out any options with regard to China. Yes. Jeff.
Thanks, Kayleigh.
Well, I mean, he says he wasn't going to talk to China, so that's one option.
Yeah.
That's kind of ruling something out. He said that on the CBS interview we watched yesterday.
I think rest assured should be the drinking phrase.
Make no mistake, it should. Rest assured, the drinking phrase.
The White House have a reaction
David, Rich, you haven't missed anything.
to the hacking of Twitter last night. And do you have any broader concerns, or does the president have any broader concerns about using that platform to issue not only his own opinions, but official policy pronouncements, given its apparent vulnerability to hacking?
Yeah, so
It's hard to
spoke with
imagine
Densky,
how
before coming on.
hackers could make that Twitter feed worse than it already is.
Oh, no, if I had the access to that Twitter feed, I would resign, and I would let everybody know that my password was Ivanka, and I'm an idiot. Oh, and I would also say that we've hacked his phone, and we've been listening to his conversations for the last 2 years. We have them all recorded. Go ahead and resign.
However, I will accept Bitcoin if Kevin does not.
Yeah, David will send you back twice as much Bitcoin. Well, okay, let's be honest. George Soros will send you back twice as much Bitcoin if you send it to us. Right there, paypal.me/KevinLeeDad. Whatever Bitcoin you send to me, I will wonder what the hell I do with Bitcoin.
Bitcoin me.
I will give it to Kevin Lee's son. Because I was talking to him about this yesterday, and I said something about, because they're mining Bitcoin. He's like, that's not mining. That's and a blockchain. And I was like, I don't know what's going on.
Here my team did.
I'm not even allowed to use cash anymore, so I'm a cashless society at this point. And I've been dying to spend my $108 I've got burning a hole in my bank account.
Okay, I'm at a loss to tie this, conspiracy theory here about how the Twitter hack ties in with the change in not reporting data to the CDC. There's clearly some dots we haven't connected here.
Oh, yeah. No, well, I know at your house, you have that board with where you put up the pictures and then you use red string between each of them so that you know what's really happening. So, and the trouble is, of course, is that red string doesn't work with 5G. So.
And Dan has been, and his team in digital have been in constant contact with Twitter over the last 18 hours to keep Twitter secure, the president's Twitter feed. The president will remain on Twitter, but his account was secure and not jeopardized during these attacks.
Okay, and just one follow-up.
No, that's nonsense, according to what has been so far at least postulated, is everyone with a blue check, everyone's account was compromised because they broke into an employee.
Yes, it wasn't an individual hack. It was just getting into the main dashboard, so to speak.
Yeah, they went through the back door.
Just question. I guess I didn't follow the data that you were just referring to. Are you saying that the president did have data to back up his claim that more white people are killed by police officers than black people?
Yeah, and I've already read out that data to you.
I don't think we followed it.
I've already read out that data to you, and you can go fact check on the Washington Post. Yes.
I think she's calling you, David.
Well, again, if we completely ignore the fact that blacks and non-blacks are not equally proportional in our population, it's all good.
Yeah, it's as long as everyone's equal. So what we need to do, I think what the president is advocating, is you have to kill 27 to 28% of the white population so that you have 3 equal groups. Oh, but then there's those Pacific Islanders. This is really going to complicate things.
2 quick questions. First, Congressman Steve Watkins.
That makes perfect. That's what COVID is for. We're just evening out the population so that we have 4 distinct groups. And that's why it hasn't hit Hawaii very hard. It all makes sense now. Put that up on your 5G board.
Of Kansas has been charged with 3 felonies in a voter fraud case. Obviously, the president campaigned with him in 2018, and he's repeatedly expressed concern with voter fraud. So, does he have a reaction to that?
That's the first I'm hearing of that. I haven't spoken to the president of it. He does have very real concerns about voter fraud, and he's mentioned several of those. And there's yet more information that there is rampant voter fraud when you have mass mail-in voting. In 2016, as the president has noted, about 1% of absentee ballots nationwide were thrown out, and it could be much higher this year as many people vote by mail for the first time. That's one of the flaws with mass mail-in voting. But beyond that, we've seen a number of reports out of New Jersey that found a U.S. Postal Service vehicle that may have been carrying mail-in ballots that was caught on fire, this truck. This was recent. Also in the New Jersey Star.
She's making that argument that's like, the police are doing a bad job. Look at how many people they keep arresting for crime. It's like, okay, you had a bunch of mail-in ballots that were thrown out because they were caught and invalidated for some reason.
Yeah, or the signature did. One year my signature didn't match because it's just scrawl. I don't know what my signature looks like. I mean, half the time I have this brace on anyway. So, yeah, in situations like that, up to 1%, or that's the thing, somebody says less than 1%, and people hear 1%. So I haven't looked into exactly how many of the absentee ballots, and again, all mail-in ballots are technically absentee ballots, have been taken a look at. But the arguments she's making is that, one postal truck caught on fire. Oh my goodness, that's terrible. I wonder how many letters and ballots were in there. The trouble is there have been polling place fires as well. And of course, the computers at the polling places always function flawlessly. Votes are never changed.
I mean, look at the 2000 election. How many non-mail-in ballots in the state of Florida could not be counted because they were not valid in some way.
Right, and President Trump took care of that. That was because of hanging chads, and in the travel ban, Trump banned Chad.
It's an indictment of in-person voting.
It's you know what it is? Second Amendment.
Ledger on June 22nd, this was very striking. 500 to 700 Republicans received ballots with all Democrat candidates. They were erroneous mail-in ballots that had been voided and then reissued, and the slate of candidates on these ballots.
Okay, did they count in the vote? Were they counted? No, they got the correct ballots. It was taken care of because Republican opened up and said, "Hi, this isn't the correct ballot," and then they got the correct ballots into them.
So wait, misprinted ballots is a mail-in voting problem.
Yeah,
is what she's saying.
It's fraud, and again, that has happened at polling places as well. Entire states have had candidates missing. Remember, in Florida, the way it looked because of the hanging ballots and the chads and all the other stuff, it looked like you were voting for President or for Vice President Gore when it was Buchanan. Right, you were actually voting for Buchanan because they lined them up opposite each other on the page. If you're at home following along, Google the 2000 election ballot from Florida, and in certain counties they had this weird ballot where the names were across from each other but staggered, and you punched out the vote for Buchanan.
Ballots was all Democrat from Joe Biden down to dog catcher, and these were supposed to be Republican ballots. Those are 3 recent examples. And
dog catchers? They have a party? That's what I'm shocked by.
Partisan dog catcher.
What's the difference? Like the Republicans are like, get all the dogs, and the Democrats are like, deregulation. Like what?
Totally run on a pro-pug platform.
Oh, absolutely. I'd vote for anybody who's a dog catcher. I'm in.
There are many more.
A quick second question, Kayleigh.
But Trump hates dogs.
Okay, there's Chris's question. I think there's an article on Snopes about the fraud rate in mail-in voting.
There you go.
Lack thereof.
So a lot of what we're talking about today, David's already covered this. Go to Snopes.com.
His claim that more white people.
All Democrat from Joe Biden down to dog catcher, and these were supposed to be Republican ballots. Those are 3 recent examples, and there are many.
Dog catcher is a lower office than like POTUS.
Yeah, it could be like a totem pole. The most important thing could be on the bottom. I mean, honestly, in your life, the guy catching the dog running around the neighborhood biting people is probably more important.
I mean, I've never seen like Soviet soldiers in my front yard, but I got dogs pooping there, so.
That's true. Wow. See, we're thinking about government all wrong. This is all topsy-turvy.
A quick second question, Kayleigh. When the president made the initial decision to move the Republican National Convention from Charlotte to Florida, he said that it was because the North Carolina governor was in a shutdown mood and that he was playing politics because he didn't want to pack an indoor stadium to full capacity. He also said that the cost to North Carolinians would be, and I'm quoting the president now, all of the jobs and the economic development the convention would bring.
Yeah, somebody at home fact check that. Do we actually vote for dog catcher? Is that just in certain states? I don't remember ever voting for a dog catcher. And like, what would you put in the voters' pamphlets?
Who's catching the cats?
Yeah, I like dogs. I hate dogs. Like what? Who? And which one would you vote for in that regard? I would just vote for, I'm going to catch dogs and try and get them back to their owner. That seems to be universal. I don't see. Wow, I don't know. Like,
they spend months debating the planks in the dog catching platform.
Oh yeah, and is everything going to be canceled?
So all of that,
because the dogs can catch the COVID as well,
money, all of that time, all of that cost to jobs and economic development to North Carolinians for the same result, right? Because they're shrinking the convention in Florida. What does the president have to say to North Carolinians?
The president loves the people of North Carolina. They're well aware of that. The president wanted to be able to hold his convention, which is why it was moved to Jacksonville. And for anything further, I'd refer you to the RNC. Yes.
Thank you, Kayleigh. The president has talked about an executive order on immigration coming soon. He's also talked about protections for DACA recipients. It's been unclear, though, whether those protections, the path to citizenship that the president talked about, will be included in the executive order. So I was hoping you could clarify. Will the path to citizenship protections for DACA be part of the executive order?
So what I would say is this, as the president announced, he's working on an executive order to establish a merit-based immigration system. That will be the intent of the executive order.
He can't, though. I mean, he doesn't have the power to do that. But I mean, he kind of does. But it's Congress has to act on that. I just looked it up, and according to Wiktionary, dog catcher is virtually never an elected office. So there you go. There's your answer.
It's political patronage. They appoint them.
Oh yeah, it's all who you know. It's all who you know.
But the president has long said that he would look for a legislative.
Sorry about that.
No.
Pause. Okay, moving on.
legislative
I thought with a live audience I might get a reaction.
I'm waiting to see if she actually says something about citizenship rather than merit-based immigration, which is not what he asked.
Trump did say that.
He said that
remember this-
yesterday. I want to see if she
Well,
says this.
It wasn't yesterday. It was whenever we watched it yesterday.
Yeah.
It was from, or was that on CBS? Was it 2 days ago that he said that? No, he said it. No, sorry. He said it on Telemundo over the weekend.
solution on DACA, and he would work with Congress to pursue that legislative solution, and one that could include citizenship along with other strong border security.
So it could include citizenship, but he's not saying that it will.
And permanent merit-based reforms. So that is something he would work with Congress.
Okay, permanent merit. You can't do anything permanent with an executive order, by definition. The next president could come in and completely erase it, which Trump said he was going to do with all of Obama's executive orders once he came into office.
Congress on, and the executive order would pertain to the merit-based portion of that.
A second question on the schools. The vice president talked about some of the new guidelines or new pages of documents for CDC coming out this week. Is that still the plan? Are those going to come out this week? Is there any chance that this is being rethought at this time?
So those are CDC guidelines you're referencing. So I'll leave it to CDC as to when those guidelines come out.
Has the CDC done a press conference in the last 3 months? They stopped doing press conferences back at the beginning of this. They were forbidden, and so I don't know. Maybe there'll be a CDC statement, but yeah, we were supposed to get those. You know what? It's going to happen right after we get those stimulus checks that Trump said he was going to give us in 2 weeks back on June 22nd.
I think the existence of the CDC is one of those burdensome regulations.
It is. Well, that's the thing. That's why they've taken away the stats from them. They're taking the control out of the Centers for Disease Control. Now it's just the Centers for Diseases. So if you're looking for a disease, come on by.
Or
But you have to wear a mask.
But we really would like to see schools open. As has been clear, we don't think our children should be locked up at home with devastating consequences when it's perfectly safe for them to go to school, as emphasized by many medical experts. So the president is very keen on seeing schools reopen. It's the only thing that's fair to America's children. Yes.
Thanks, Kayleigh.
So I just heard this morning on one of the news channels that in an area of Florida, I'm not sure if this whole state or not because I was doing other things as this was happening, but 1/3 of children tested came back positive.
This is kind of like the, climate change. It's still unsettled science. There's no consensus here, really. So the medical experts say it's okay for kids to go to school. It's perfectly safe. In what proportion are experts saying that?
Virtually none of them are going to die. 1% or less.
Two quick questions for you. On Wednesday, the CDC director said, quote, if all of us would put on a face...
Well, and the other question there, of course, which we've kind of been talking about the last few days, is that it's not just the kids. You can't have the kids there without the teachers. Actually, why not have the teachers stay home, put the kids in the class, and then have a television, and then the kids have to stay at the school. They can get, fed through the windows or something. And that way you don't have teachers dying like the teacher in Arizona who just died. And the other two are very sick. 2 other teachers are very sick. I don't know how many teachers are infected. I have to look into that or not. It's just, it's maddening.
Covering now for the next 4 weeks, 6 weeks, I think we could drive this epidemic into the ground. Admiral Giroir has made similar comments. The CDC director called it our, quote, major defense. I'm wondering if the president would consider at any point a nationwide mask mandate.
Well, the president...
2 questions.
XO that.
Giroir has made similar...
How does he keep his glasses from fogging up with that mask? Because he's wearing it halfway up. Is that the trick? You have to wear it halfway up your eyes, and then it won't fog up your glasses?
The CDC director called it our, quote, major defense. I'm wondering...
And the next question is, why didn't we do that? Why don't we do that? All we need is, like the other countries, we're going to shut down until across the country the rates have low... It's really simple. There's been enough countries that have done it now that we know that's what works. That's what you have to do. Otherwise, you end up, okay, let's open up a little bit, and then our cases skyrocket again.
Because freedom.
Yeah, that's true. Apparently the virus doesn't give a shit about your freedom.
If the president would consider at any point a nationwide mask mandate.
Well, the president has said that he would wear a mask if he was in a place where he couldn't be appropriately social distanced. He did wear a mask this weekend when he visited the hospital. So he has shown that he'll wear a mask, and not only that, that he would wear one if he wasn't socially distanced, as evidenced by his own actions. We leave it to localities to make the decisions with regard to face coverings, and the CDC guidelines remain the same today, recommended but not required.
And a quick second question for you. You were saying earlier that the president is very concerned about local officials who are not taking actions about deaths in their cities. You also said he was appalled by what happened to George Floyd. In March, a 26-year-old black woman named Breonna Taylor was killed while sleeping in her home. The 3 officers involved in that case in Kentucky have not been arrested or fired. Is the president monitoring that case at all, and does he want to see justice for Breonna Taylor?
Yeah, I won't weigh into that other than to say I'd refer you to the DOJ, who takes federal action where necessary, where the facts merit, but our hearts grieve for Breonna Taylor's family.
Thank you.
CDC have the authority to require that people wear face masks?
The CDC can only make recommendations. That's what they do.
Recommended but not required,
Yeah.
because we can't require you to wear face masks.
Right, and a national order from the president. I'm trying to think if that's ever happened. What typically happens, of course, is the governors just pass on whatever the federal mandate is.
Except Georgia.
Except Georgia. The states have the power for the safety of the people. That's 1824 Gibbons v. Ogden. But it's never been determined, so far as I know, and if there's a constitutional lawyer or scholar in the audience, let us know. I can't remember a time when the federal government has actually been able to mandate a health requirement. And I don't know that they have that power because that's not explicit in the Constitution. That's not true. The government is responsible for the welfare of the people. So it's just, I don't think it's ever gone before SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, so that they can make a ruling on that and not codify, but not legislate. I don't even know affirm the constitutional power of the government to do that. But it would go a lot farther if it was a legislative action that was just then signed by the president and codified, as opposed to just, we think we can do this. That being said, it's just idiocy that it's not happening.
But didn't someone just ask her that earlier in this conference about was the president going to do that? And she said he was hard at work, or rest assured, or...
Yeah, and as you pointed out, he's busy. He's got that Goya contract that he's got to keep up with. So...
President Trump is the only U.S. president to have stood strong against China, which is of great comfort to countries like India and his other...
Why do you keep asking questions about India?
The Asian neighborhood. Does he has a message to China on this? And has he spoken to China, other countries, how to collaborate against China?
Yeah, thank you, Lalit. I did see your question earlier, and I brought it to the president, and he said, I love the people of India, and I love the people of China, and I want to do everything possible to keep the peace for the people. Thank you.
I just gotta watch that again. It's so reassuring when KK Macaroni does everything possible, and the president would like to see peace.
I have no idea what the issue is, but play nice, guys.
Well, remember last time he asked about TikTok, China banning TikTok, and her response was about the conflict on the border between China and Kashmir and India. And so she just doesn't know what's going on.
Does TikTok go on this side of the border, or is it on your side?
I think she's so happy that this time the question might have had something to do with what she had written down in the binder. So let's watch her again.
I love the people of India, and I love the people of China, and I want to do everything possible to keep the peace for the people.
I love Indian food, and I love Chinese food, and I want to do everything I can to keep the cuisine for the people.
Yeah, absolutely. Then you got to do this at the end. Let's see it, David. Good. There you go. That's scary. Don't do that.
A question that flows from two events that we saw recently that we wouldn't have seen at previous White Houses. The first was the campaign meeting in the cabinet room last month, and then the political speech in the Rose Garden this week. Can you talk about your understanding of what the White House policy is for this White House as far as politics? Is there any place in the White House where you think politics is inappropriate? I mean, where do you draw the line?
We act in accordance with the Hatch Act. It's well established that the president and vice president are not subject to the Hatch Act. It says this much in the Hatch Act. It says that the Hatch Act applies to executive branch employees, which is defined in the Hatch Act as employee, meaning any individual other than the president and the vice president. So his speech in the Rose Garden was entirely appropriate.
The Hatch Act.
Yeah, he's not asking about the Hatch Act. He's asking, is it right for the president to be advertising a hill of beans?
Yeah,
behind the Resolute desk.
The Hatch Act doesn't. It would be a Hatch Act would be involved to say the president promised the head of the company a cabinet position in return for his support. But it's not a Hatch Act issue that the president is endorsing a brand because the company's head is a public supporter of him. That's a White House ethics violation, nothing to do with the Hatch Act.
Yeah, but that happened too with the Secretary of the Army position. So
it has nothing to do with this, though.
Basically, there's no consequences. So go ahead and hawk your beans.
What?
It's just things that until this time we always thought that's beneath the office of the president. But Trump is so far beneath the office, he's in the bunker. I mean, that's where he is, quite literally.
It has everything to do with this. Go read the Hatch Act. That's what you're alleging is problematic for the president. What your real problem was the fact that the president gave a very
I love it when people tell me what my problem is.
good, powerful speech from the Rose Garden.
It's not
That
a
was the
speech.
problem.
It was the speech. It was an unattended campaign rally.
No, it's not the sitting behind the Resolute desk sending out ads for beans. It's the very powerful speech in the Rose Garden, which we watched. It was a campaign rally for, it was an hour, 50 minutes?
Yeah, the president has said unmistakably that he wants schools to open, and I was just in the Oval talking to him about that. And when he says open, he means open and full, kids being able to attend each and every day at their school.
And they've been wavering on that the last few days. First off, the president has no power to open any of the schools. Secondly, it's been, open. Yes, but we can't open because, you have to, every district has to take its own considerations and social distancing. No, she just said open and full. There's no question. How do you socially distance a class of 35 kids if there isn't 6 feet worth of distance? It can't be done. No. It cannot be done. And now we know. And now, that being said, Trump will walk back on this because it just depends on who's in the room.
The science should not stand in the way of this.
There it is. The science should not stand in the
full
way
science
of this.
getting in the way of
We shouldn't let science dictate things.
And as Dr. Scott Atlas said, I thought this was a good quote. Of course we can do it. Everyone else in the Western world, our peer nations, are doing it. We are the outlier here. The science is very clear on.
We are definitely the outlier, specifically with the COVID cases.
I didn't vote for science any more than I voted for dog catcher.
Yeah, science wasn't elected.
For instance, you look at the JAMA pediatric study of 46 pediatric hospitals in North America that said the risk of critical illness from COVID is far less for children than that of seasonal flu. The science is on our side here, and we encourage for localities and states to just simply follow the science, open our schools. It's very damaging to our children. There's a lack of reporting of abuse. There's mental depressions that are not addressed, suicidal ideations that are not addressed when students are not in school. Our schools are extremely important, they're essential, and they must reopen. Yes.
Thanks, Kayleigh.
Just without teachers, and the children should be sequestered in the school. I mean, problem solved. You test everybody, you send the kids in, and then in, I guess, May, the kids can come out? Is that...
The U.S., Canada, and the U.K. today accused Russia of trying to hack coronavirus research, vaccine research. I was wondering if the president has a response to Russia to that.
You may not be able to hear her. So this morning, it turns out that Russia has been trying to hack and gain the research into the virus from, where was it, Canada, UK, and somewhere else, David? Did you catch this?
I don't remember where. But
okay,
yes, they're trying to hack the info.
My response to that is good. Why are we not sharing that information with the world? The more scientists, the better. We should. I don't like this whole vaccine for profit model. This is the history, the future. and I know we can only live in the present, the future of the human race is at stake here. If the Russians can help with this, let them. Remember, NASA spent, and this is a fact check for you. I'm sure you guys have covered this before, because I've heard it 1,000 times. NASA spent X number of dollars developing the ballpoint pen so that the astronauts could write in space, because there's zero gravity and there's no way for the ink to be drained to the bottom of the pen. So NASA spent a bunch of money researching this, came up with the ballpoint pen, tens of millions of dollars, whatever it was in the 1950s,
They could write
60s.
in zero G, yeah.
Yeah, able to write in zero G, and the Russians used pencils. Is that a true story, David?
No. It's on our site.
Damn it, it's such a good story. It's so illustrative.
It was actually the guy at, I think, Fisher Pen actually developed it on his own. The government didn't spend money to develop it. He gave or sold it to the government for a very modest price. It's not like the government never considered using pencils, but pencils, lead points break off, the shavings fly off very bad in an environment like a space capsule. So, it wasn't they were just outsmarted by the Russians. It was, actually a very thoughtful process.
This is why it's so handy to have David as a friend, but do not invite him to your dinner party. If there was a human embodiment of the word actually, it's David, but we love him. He does know everything, and he does ruin. I just love that story.
No, but if you feed me, I'll knock it off. I'll keep it quiet.
No, that's right. If he's at a dinner party, make sure there's a drinking word, and the word is the. He's hammered. He's out on the floor in 2 minutes.
But anyways, it's like, you don't want the Russians, to have this info because they're diligently at work pre-engineering COVID-21 for their next assault on...
You think they would sabotage the virus?
Well, why else would they want it?
The vaccine? Well, no, because they don't want to do the work. This should be open source.
Do they think we're not going to share?
Was it Salk who developed the polio and gave it to the world?
Yeah.
The guy who the guy behind insulin, was it, or was it?
Yeah, he could have made millions, I think, and he gave it away. Yeah.
Right. This is better for everyone. There. See, that's good. Now I like having David around.
I'm getting German. I'm getting German chocolate cake. So deal.
Oh yeah. Okay. Perfect. Excellent. Good to hear, producer Joanna. Chocolate cake for everybody. Here we go.
Yes, so the one thing I would say about that, and it was announced earlier today, is that we worked very closely with our allies to ensure that we would take measures to keep that information safe.
For those of you watching the clock, we're already way past the time that President Trump is supposed to be giving something or other, so we'll catch up as we go along. I think after we're done with this, it's going to be a while. We'll take a little break, and then we'll come back with Trump. I'll take a look and see if he's actually talking yet. But let's keep moving with this.
I have to run out and file my papers to run for dog catcher. Upcoming.
Got to get those in now.
Tacoma municipal election.
Remember, it's all got to be done through the mail.
And we continue to do so, and we're aware of those activities. Yes.
Oh, thanks, Kayleigh. On the CDC, on the movement of data going straight from CDC to HHS now, understanding that HHS needs access to real-time data, was there also any concern whatsoever undergirding this decision regarding CDC's possible manipulation of data? There were some reports coming out of Florida. Certain states were coming out and saying mid-level CDC reports were not necessarily accurate.
I wasn't even watching.
And so was that,
Trump is not
did
speaking
that have
yet.
any effect in this decision to send data straight to HHS?
No, the intent for this...
I missed the question. How did she justify moving it out of CDC? What did she say?
I couldn't hear it.
Okay, well, we can listen again.
Possible manipulation of data. There were some reports coming out of Florida.
She's wearing her scarf around the neck, so that's at least an attempt. That's almost as good as the people who wear it right underneath the nose like that.
If she had a tracheotomy, it would be appropriate.
Right.
Certain states were coming out and saying mid-level CDC reports were not necessarily accurate. And so did that have any effect in this decision to send data straight to...
Oh, Rich, she was wearing it, according to Rich. So, okay. Oh, good for her.
HHS?
No, the intent for this decision, and I talked extensively today with Dr. Birx, with Secretary Azar, and with Dr. Redfield about this. The intent of this is we need to make sure that there is daily data that is being given to Dr. Birx and others who are running point on a lot of our actions with remdesivir and identifying hotspots. And I would point out, and I just want to explain this because I think there's been some confusion in the press, that there are two methods of data collection. The one is the National Healthcare Safety Network, and this is a CDC system, and this is where hospitals voluntarily report their data, and about 81% of hospitals were reporting their data. So we don't need 81% of hospitals reporting data. We need 100.
Quick break here. Casey says Mary Trump's book sold 950,000 copies on its first day.
Yeah, I saw it was approaching 1 million, I think, this morning.
Wow.
100% of hospitals reporting data, because it is critical that Dr. Birx and others receive the daily admissions, ICU use, and PPE numbers. And when you're only getting 81% of hospital data, that means you've got 19% of hospitals that were unaware of their needs. So what happened is we also have a...
Can we not extrapolate, though? I mean, yeah, everybody should be reporting, but once you have 81%, is that not a pretty good indication of what's going on? Well, unless every hospital in Miami-Dade County says, okay, that's it, we're busy, we're not doing this.
I don't understand why then the issues don't let it be voluntary, make it mandatory to report.
Right.
You don't have to change where the data are going.
It's both under the HAs. Why mess with the system? It's like at work when they tell you, oh yeah, we're updating to Oracle. Oh, it's going to be seamless. You're going to leave at night. You're going to come in the next morning. So we're going to learn the next, and of course you come the next morning, and the customers are calling, and the databases are thrashed.
Right.
Second,
and the backups.
You used to update to Oracle, didn't you, David, for a living? Isn't that what you did?
Method of using tracking this data, and it's the teletracker database, and this is an HHS system, and this was initially used for purposes of provider relief funding, and we asked hospitals to tell us about their COVID admissions so that we could identify possible hotspots, and as it turns out, this data ended up being more complete, more up to date with information, and so ensuring that hospitals are reporting into this system where we're getting more complete data was the reason that HHS has had this transition where they've asked hospitals to transition reporting to the teletracker system. It's important, especially with remdesivir distribution, that we know exactly where the needs are so we can surge them. So this...
We'll still have access to this data independently.
Yes, that's right. So I did confirm that with Dr. Redfield.
That is absolutely not true. COVID Exit Strategy, the site that I like to use to illustrate to you guys how we're doing as a country. I'll pop it up right here. Okay, no, I won't. The left screen has been changed. Hold on, I can move that over. Again, we're dealing with a bunch of new equipment here. So there we go. So you can see here the uncontrolled spread is the maroon. And I'm on that screen. There we go. And they have all kinds of cool stats and stuff like that. Red is bad, yellow is slow down, and green is go. But yeah, we're still on, unfortunately, their data source for ICUs and beds has been removed by the CDC. We go there, and dashboard updated as of July 14th for more information. A current hospital, blah, blah, blah. You have to go to, there's a PDF issued on the 13th. So there's no current data available as far as we know. I'm not going to track that down right now, but that's that. So no, the data is not still available.
No data equals no pandemic.
Yeah. If there's no numbers.
This is completely open source data available to the CDC. Secretary Azar says we insist that they use it, and no one, and Dr. Redfield confirmed this, no one is taking access or data away from the CDC, and that data is routinely...
But it's not there anymore. It's literally gone.
It's a technicality.
Did the data walk away on its own? Coincidentally on the same date?
Published so that the American people are fully informed. Yes.
So I wanted to follow on that briefly. There's been some complaints, particularly among independent modelers who are using the CDC data that was updated daily to sort of put out their public models, some of which the White House has relied on, that now those dashboards have been taken down. So I'm wondering if the administration would sort of commit to making the broader database a bit more available to the public.
The CDC database is the public data that's been out there. It'll continue to be public. It should.
It's not there.
Be public.
It should be public, yes, but it's not there. Why? So I'm hoping this guy follows up with, it's not there right now, Kayleigh. It's gone.
And this is all about getting more data out there, not less data, and ensuring, in particular, that our doctors get that daily data.
Jimmy has 3 apples. We take 4 apples away from Jimmy and give them to Sally. How many apples does Jimmy? Jimmy has more apples.
He should have 3, though.
And one thing that I'd also like to point out for everyone.
Per capita, how many apples?
It's just with regard to testing. We've done more than 42 million tests, as I noted. The second highest number is 12 million from India. We're leading the
China.
No, China is way ahead of us. They always eliminate Russia. Oh, the president's coming up, by the way. They always eliminate Russia in that. Russia, I can get you that number, but let's move on.
World in testing. And it's a very stark contrast, and the president mentioned this yesterday, so I just wanted to put some additional information out there. It was actually CBS reporting that in 2009, under Obama-Biden, quote, and this is CBS reporting, CDC abruptly advised states to stop testing for H1N1 flu and stop counting individual cases. So while this president surged testing under the Obama administration, they stopped testing entirely. And Ron Klain, Vice President.
How many did she say India had?
So we're like, what, 45 million tests now, right?
The United States, well, according to Our World in Data, 45.5 million, yeah.
So like as of like back in the latter part of June, China was reporting like 90 million tests.
90 million as of the third week of June, yes.
But
they don't report their numbers, but every once in a while the CDC in China will give out a number as sort of an update, but they don't do a daily testing thing like the other countries do. And the United States still does not put out any figures on the number of actual people tested as opposed to the number of tests given. So United States units unclear. That's why it says, you guys can't see that, but what it says here is United States units unclear because we don't know whether it's a person or a test. 45.5 million. Russia, 24 million.
I totally pranked it because I went online and signed up for 6 million tests.
Oh, that was you. That makes perfect sense. That is exactly what David does.
Biden's former chief of staff said this: it is purely a fortuity that H1N1 isn't one of the great mass casualty events in American history. It had nothing to do with us doing anything right. This is former VP Biden's chief of staff. It just had to do with luck. Contrary to that, this...
Yeah, we got lucky with H1N1 because those flus can come back with a vengeance. You never know. The Spanish flu could come back. This is the way viruses work. This virus could mutate and become a 30% fatality rate. We don't know. We hope and pray. In the meantime, we do what we can to protect ourselves from the knowns.
Yeah.
President led the world in testing, led the world in ventilators, redistributing ventilators, 4 therapeutics, 13 vaccine candidates, 1 going into phase 3 clinical trial. This response has been extraordinary and historic. We didn't pause testing. The Obama-Biden administration did, and that was a shameful decision. Thank you.
Well, the Obama administration paused it in July. They didn't pause it. They didn't say, we're not going to test. They said, look, you don't have to test anymore because we're finding less than 1% positivity for the H1N1 virus. And it was basically the flu, literally the flu. And so the season was over. And, hey, we're good right now, guys. If you want to keep testing, there's a couple of states out there that were higher percentage, but most of them were less than 1%. Some of them were 1 or 2%. And you know what? As history tells us, it worked out.
I want to know, who's the entourage that follows her out the door? Watch there be like 4 people behind her when she goes.
I don't know. Let's find out. So that's going to be assistant, and they're all making. They are all making $110,000, by the way, of taxpayer money, hoping and praying that they become her. And one of them will soon be the campaign manager for Trump because he's just got a stopgap in there right now. Okay, so that's that. We're going to take, I'm checking out Trump here on the other screen. Thanks for watching, by the way. David with Snopes is going to be tied to us most of the day. We're hoping to do a question and answer with him, so if you have questions about a fact check that you happen to think is great, like the Russians using pencils, David knows it's not true, and he'll ruin your childhood
Yeah.
Dispersions? Aspersions?
You might think we're remote, but actually Kevin locked me in his garage, so I really got nothing else to do.
They know that I can't afford a garage. So nice try. Yeah, I don't know. We'll make President Trump work. Oh, I can get him off of YouTube. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break.
You could get him off of YouTube.
Yeah, no.
And Twitter.
Yeah, get him off of Twitter. It can't be done. David, is the moon hollow? That's a question for later for the Q&A. So get all those questions together, and we will make this happen a little bit later. And we're going to take, I don't know, like 5-10 minutes to refresh ourselves. I'm out. And David probably is as well. So we'll get some snacks, and we'll be broadcasting again in about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes.
I'll just
We'll
clue
see you
you
guys
in
then.
the moon was not hollow prior to the Apollo 11 landing.
Oh, that's where we got all that cheese.
The green room bar.
Kevin, is this helpful to Joe Biden?
Wait, what?